everyone, and welcome to the Teach Middle East podcast. Today, I have with me David Keating, and David is an educator, and we're going to be talking to him about staying in teaching, leaving teaching, what are your choices, why would someone leave teaching, or why would someone leave and come back as quickly as he did? Just kind of getting a feel of what teachers' thought processes are when considering their career options.
You are listening to the Teach Middle East podcast, connecting, developing, and empowering educators.
So I'll ask David to introduce himself and then we'll get started. Hi, David. How are you?
Good, Lisa. Thanks for that little intro. And I'll just build on it saying that I'm from Cork City in Ireland originally. I studied English and geography in university and then qualified as an English and geography secondary school teacher. That was around 8 years ago. And I came straight out to the UAE, kind of international teaching, and travel was something that I wanted to do. So I've been in the UAE for 8 years now, teaching in a couple of different private schools. And then, as you touched upon in the intro, I recently made the move out of the classroom into an educational resource kind of sales company in an educational consultant role. And recently as well, I've been doing some kind of educational research and writing with the Tampere University of Applied Sciences. I'm an affiliate member of the CARDA research group, and that looks at critically evaluating digitalization in education and things like that. So I've been enjoying that recently. And that's currently where I am.
Okay. So you mentioned that you have been out here for 8 years and you qualified just before coming out here. Why did you make the move out here that quickly?
I think just kind of, to be honest, seeing photos of friends on social media and things. So I had a couple of friends that have come out maybe a year or two before. And obviously I was in Cork City and kind of training and working part-time and seeing photos of them traveling around Thailand for their Easter break and things like that, that did draw me out. So I'd like to kind of say career progression and things like that is my official answer, but photographs on Facebook was a big draw as well. And I kind of, there was some advertisement from different schools in Cork and in the college I was in. So when I saw the advertisements and I was able to set up interviews while I was still at home, I actually had the job then done. By the time I actually qualified, I had the offer and things like that. So it was quite a smooth transition. So I qualified at the end of that year in May, and then I was coming out here at mid-August kind of.
Yeah, we like that. We like honest answers, because some people tell you the foolishness about, I wanted to grow as a professional. But really, you just wanted to come out here, do your best work, but also have a great time. I prefer to hear that, than some fabricated foolishness. But if you think back to why did you become a teacher? What was your motivation to enter the profession?
Yeah, I think maybe a lack of guidance counselors in the school as well for a range of jobs. But no, I think like a lot of people, probably positive experiences with teachers that I had. So rather than kind of one standout inspirational one, there was different teachers that I had that I kind of got different things from. Say I would have learned different things from different ones, and some were known. I would enjoy their kind of sense of humor and the way they approached lessons. Others I would kind of admire even their kind of career path. Even one of the English teachers I had kind of went into research and kind of things like that while he was teaching us. And I found that interesting at the time, and that's something that I've kind of followed maybe unconsciously even. And I suppose a lot of people get into it because they're passionate about kind of one subject or their subject. But I don't know if I'm a bit different in that I kind of wanted to teach. It was the act of teaching. I was almost open to teaching not anything, but different subjects. I liked art. I liked engineering, construction. I liked English. And I was exploring different kind of options of teaching any of those subjects rather than being really passionate. Obviously, I'm passionate about English, and that's what I've taught for the last while. But I think just the act of teaching that I wanted to get into, and the international thing I spoke about as well. I did always kind of see myself teaching somewhere multicultural, maybe definitely in the early years rather than where I kind of studied and things like that. So
I like that. I like the fact that you you like the art of teaching, because we can get a real sense of ownership of a subject. You know, I'm a languages teacher, or I was for many years.
Yeah.
And I have to be honest, I got into teaching because of my love for languages. And so in the end, you're like, okay, what jobs could I do that would have me still do my languages every day while earning? And teaching was just the top of the list. There are other things I could do, but they were a little bit boring, like translation and interpreting.
Yeah.
I mean, can you think about repeating something everyone says in another language for a career? No disrespect to the translators out there, but it wouldn't float my boat, and teaching, I thought, was better. But you not having taught in Ireland, do you think you missed anything from not having started your career at home and then moving abroad?
Yeah, probably. Maybe, like, I think in terms, like, obviously the expat life can't go on forever. And if I do think about going back and settling in Ireland and going into teaching in Ireland, like, I'm obviously at a massive disadvantage in that it doesn't really mean as much if you go into secondary school in Ireland and tell them about all the IB teaching experience you have. Like, they'll want to hear about your experience with the Leaving Cert and things like that. So I suppose I would be at a little bit of a disadvantage in that, but then it can be difficult to get into a full-time position in Ireland. So if I did stay and go straight into school, I would have had to maybe earn my stripes and things with smaller workloads and not a full timetable. And I wouldn't have been going at the pace I was compared to coming out here, where you're kind of thrown into your own classes and you're thrown straight into professional development and things. So I think maybe the career path as an expat teacher, if you get straight into it, it's maybe accelerated, but you do forfeit or give up maybe a grounding at home, and you make yourself a little bit less employable. So I'm happy enough with my decision, because at the moment I'm not sure when I'll go home or what I'll do when I go back to Ireland. So I think it's just something that needs to be considered.
Yeah. And so your whole teaching career has blossomed in this country. What have you enjoyed most about teaching here?
Definitely the kind of multicultural aspect of it, like, and having such a range of nationalities in the classroom, and you can draw on kind of all sorts of different experiences, and you're learning every day. Like, if I'm in Cork City and I'm teaching in the one school, I'm probably teaching a similar group of people from a similar background with similar experiences, whereas here you're learning every day, and every class you have will have a different combination of cultures and things like that. So definitely I would say that aspect of it, and kind of learning as much from the kids as they would learn from me, but probably more even. So that was definitely a big thing, because I think in Ireland and a lot of places, in terms of multiculturalism things, we can still be a little bit behind. And even with things with Islam and things that would even there'd be very little knowledge of even still. Like, to come out here and be exposed to it in kind of the manner that I was, I think it did open my eyes a lot about what it is and what it stands for and things like that. So
Yeah.
the multiculturalism thing was definitely the best kind of benefit I got of it.
So you actually left teaching for a short time, and this is why we wanted to catch up with you on the podcast. What were some of the driving forces behind your decision in stepping outside of the classroom after 8 years?
I think for me it was like a combination of frustration and opportunity presenting at the same time. So, like, the strange thing was when I left the classroom was when I was kind of, to me, doing my best teaching. It was when all my classes I had great relationships with. I didn't have any kind of behavioral issues or anything like that. I was comfortable in what I was doing. Like, I was enjoying everything in the classroom, in the class periods. And then it was kind of, once the bell rang and I left, it was kind of all of the other things that were kind of causing me frustration. And I think I left, say, in January of this year. So it was during the pandemic. And at the end of last year, we had everybody was online teaching. And then we came back this year and we had the blended learning of teaching some students in class and some at home and online and things. And I think all teachers globally were stretched quite far, and they were asked to do a lot of things. And just in my particular environment, while we were being asked to do all this extra stuff, pay was cut to protect profits and things like that. Teachers were let go, so class sizes increased. And it felt like we were putting in all of this extra work and not really getting any of the thanks, and having kind of less in our pocket then at the end of the day because of it. So all of that frustration then boiled over, and then an opportunity came. It was kind of through somebody I knew who had a connection in an educational supplies company. They told me that they were looking for a teacher, somebody from an educational background to help sell the products to schools, and also to give kind of consultancy on different products and kind of introduce ed tech and things like that. So it was kind of an exciting opportunity coupled with frustration. Then I think I kind of just jumped, and that was it then. And because of the contracts we were on at the time, an unlimited one in the UAE as opposed to a fixed term one, we didn't really have to give as much notice. It was so schools could cut it short notice if they had to, but it benefited us in that we could go with less notice. So I gave my 2 months notice and I jumped, and that was it.
Yeah, a lot of teachers do look outside when things get really frustrating. And I'm telling you, this past 18 months have been really, really frustrating for a lot of the things you outlined and even more. And so you took that shot to leave, but you're heading right back in the new academic year. So you didn't stay out for very long. What's making you want to come back so soon?
Yeah, no, I lasted, within 6 months, I think, because I left in January and I'll be joining a new school in August. So what made me come back? I think just realizing, and it was kind of a clear realization, and something that I'd stressed to kind of other teachers that are having the same kind of thought. I was frustrated with the environment I was in and where I was specifically, rather than with the job of teaching or the career of teaching. But it was just, while I was frustrated and looking kind of elsewhere, the best opportunity that presented itself was the one outside of the classroom. And there wasn't many of the schools I was interested in joining. So maybe if a different school was available that I was interested in, it could have been different. But I think just the excitement of something completely different drove me out. And then just realizing that what I was frustrated with was specific things to my environment and my school, rather than specific things to teaching themselves. And it was things that I kind of realized that I missed. There's a lot of novelty when you leave teaching, because most people that teach stay teaching and they only know a school environment. And the novelty of a more flexible work day, and you can go out and meet people for coffees and business lunches and kind of things like that seem kind of appealing, but they got kind of boring to me quite quickly. And then I realized that what I missed was the school atmosphere that I enjoyed being in a school, the kind of energy and environment of it, having the students around all day and kind of what you get from them and the fun you have with them, rather than being in, if you go to an office environment, adults can be a lot less fun than kids kind of on most days. And I remember while I was teaching, sometimes I'd come in and I'd be tired and I'd kind of think, oh, I'd love a desk job or an office job so I don't have to be kind of fun for these kids. But then once I left it, you realize the days that you want a quiet day are far outnumbered by the days that you want something fun and you want kind of a better atmosphere and something you can enjoy doing. And another thing then was, I just kind of felt the skills that I had weren't being used. So even though I was still in an educational environment or an education industry, as you mentioned earlier, the art of teaching, if we're going to call it that, and that I had gotten good at managing a classroom and kind of getting the balance right between enjoying it and getting work done and things like that. And I just kind of felt all these skills I'd honed in dealing with kind of difficult teenagers at times weren't really being put to use. And it was a lot of admin and just kind of meetings. And I just kind of felt that I wasn't going to get the same satisfaction out of it. So I kind of decided to start looking back into it because, and again, this might be relevant for other teachers looking to move out, I didn't want to stay out of it too long so that my identity would then be different to an employer. So when I started looking at jobs now, I was the teacher that had been out of teaching for a few months, whereas if I'd left it a year, and done a cycle in the new job, it would have been, this education consultant is now looking for a job as a teacher again. So there was a lot of things like that. So timing I was conscious of being out of it too long.
Yeah, I can think about the fact that a lot of teachers find, you just said, relevant, but then there are still some teachers who are thinking, I just want out. I want a break. I want to do something different. What do you think are some of the best bits, apart from what you've just mentioned? What do you think are some of the best bits, some of the perks of being a teacher, not just in the classroom, but overall?
Again, we're going to talk about honest answers and not the textbook answer, but the hours are are a bonus.
Honest answers.
And any teachers that are listening now who kind of say like, oh, I spend this much time marking and things afterwards, like, I know that, but to be stuck in an office for a certain amount of time and to have your workday finish at a certain time, or to have a meeting go on past 6 p.m. when you're used to having a bit more freedom of your schedule after a certain day, like that is a drawback. And obviously the holidays and things like that. But other kind of benefits, like I got a real value from seeing value that I imparted or that I kind of gave to other people to an extent. In that, like for me, I went into a job where it was kind of numbers based, and because obviously it was education consulting, but to sell products, you had like the aim was to hit certain numbers and to make profits and things like that. And like I kind of got nothing from it. So like if one of the people on my team said, oh, we've secured this school and the orders worth this much, and like I kind of didn't really care. The numbers could have been anything to me because it was just a number. Whereas in teaching and even in Dubai, where obviously a lot of the schools are private and profit orientated, that it is a numbers game, but within that numbers game, you're kind of doing something that you're getting value from and making a difference as well. So like most days I would come back some bit satisfied with a lesson that had gone well or something that was good, or like graduation was something that I always really enjoyed. And that's something that like I've noticed now not being like the graduations. I think they were yesterday in the school that I left, and like hearing kind of a buzz about them and knowing that I kind of wasn't there to cap it off. Like that was something I got a lot of satisfaction from, in that obviously every day you would do things you enjoyed, but kind of completing a student over a course, so taking them in grade 11 and then seeing them graduate at the end of grade 12, you kind of could see almost a finished product to an extent that you played a big role in. So stuff like that, and the kind of value of everyday interactions rather than a number being a kind of a goal or something like that is something that I noticed.
Yeah, I do believe teachers are people who are more passionate about people. And it's going to be hard to change that. It's going to be hard to switch that over to being business focused, numbers focused, target driven in terms of financial targets, I mean. But what do you think is causing teachers to want to leave? Apart from the pandemic, what else? What's driving such large numbers to have such a deep desire to exit the classroom?
Yeah, I think there's push and pull factors that kind of need to be talked about. So like push factors, I think frustration in kind of, I think not being appreciated is something that like that I experienced, but I have a large kind of network of friends here that are teachers, and that seems to be a common narrative, that so much is asked and then not very much is given back. And I think unfortunately poor leadership is an issue as well, in that like in Dubai it's quite transient and roles come up, and sometimes people are in the UAE. Sometimes people kind of get into positions where they're maybe not prepared or not in it for the right reasons. And I think that was something I definitely encountered, in that it's frustrating to work for a leader that you feel isn't into it as you are, or maybe kind of in it for the wrong reasons. I think that's something that the teachers I've experienced and spoken about. But pull factors then as well, there are opportunities for teachers and there are job opportunities for people that have a knowledge of the education landscape in the UAE that isn't in schools. And it's only that when I've kind of left it and joined that kind of industry, I've seen the amount of it. And there's lots of companies in educational resources, in textbooks, in ed tech, in software, that like there are roles for teachers. So I think to kind of draw of, okay, you can leave your school and you'll come here and you'll get this package and you can do this and you'll still be putting your kind of knowledge to work. So I think a combination of that push and pull, and that there's a lot of frustration with teachers at the minute, but there's also a lot of opportunity. And I was kind of one example, but there's plenty. And even the same time I left, two good friends of mine also left their schools and they went to similar kind of roles and they've ended up being happy. So that's kind of a caveat that I'd add, in that if you are thinking about it, like I wouldn't just kind of say, oh, stay in teaching, it's the noble kind of profession. If you're frustrated and there's an opportunity and you feel you're kind of better set to it, then explore it, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you cannot make somebody stay if they don't want to stay. But what do you think schools could do, though, to stem that tide of teachers just wanting to leave?
Yeah, that's a tough question, to be honest. I think showing more appreciation, and like it doesn't even need to be in, like I know the way schools are under kind of financial pressure with the pandemic and things, it doesn't need to be monetary. I think a lot of leaders were kind of found out during COVID with kind of a lack of maybe the soft skills and kind of emotional intelligence and things like that. And like a lot of the messages from leadership were just kind of, right, this is what we need to do. Let's kind of get on with it. So I think one kind of small things that they could do is just kind of demonstrate a better emotional intelligence and kind of be wired into how teachers are feeling. Because I think a lot of times leadership are surprised when kind of notice is handed in or teachers leave and they're not aware of it. But the teacher might feel that I was clearly frustrated and me, bringing up X, Y, and Z in kind of meetings was a sign of it. So I think kind of being more in tune with your staff and actually knowing if they're frustrated and addressing it in any way you can. And if it's not fixing the pay cut, just acknowledging the frustration and putting in kind of some beginning step to addressing it, I think just maybe listening to the frustrations or kind of just being more responsive to issues that are being faced. But those are small steps.
Yeah, I do agree with you for sure. I do agree with the fact that just being more in tune with the needs of the staff would actually go a long way. We hear schools talk a lot about well-being. It's now like a song, really.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure they actually understand what well-being means. So you can't help somebody to be well if you're piling on the pressure or if you're not being sensitive to their emotional needs as people. And you just think maybe just because you do a staff lunch or something, which is good within itself, but it doesn't mean well-being if after the staff lunch they have to work until 7 to catch up on the things they missed because they had lunch. You know what I mean?
No, that's something that definitely resonates with me and something that I did find frustrating. It's kind of like they're addressing well-being and you're kind of saying, right, look, my timetable is quite heavy this year. My class is kind of this big. It's going to be difficult to get through the marking for this. And then I have this many duties and things like that. And it's kind of like, right, here's a CPD on mindfulness. And it's like thanks, but like, can we address the timetable? Can we do something? Even taking a little step is say, right, I'll do that duty, or you can have this kind of extra half an hour to have more time to eat and things like that. Like there's just kind of soft skills and kind of understanding what are the real kind of needs and not jump into gimmicks, like you said, about kind of CPD and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, a friend of mine was telling me of an experience where a teacher was supposed to be observed, right? But that teacher had a real bad situation happening at home back in the UK. And they were afraid to tell their supervisor that such a thing was happening. And they went through the observation. It wasn't great. But, I thought, do you know what? I don't even think that person should have told their supervisor. I think it should be standard that the supervisor checks. It says, oh, I'm coming in for an observation. Are you ready? Is everything okay? Are you up to it? Would a better time suit? Just asking certain questions would help that leader to understand whether or not the time was right. I think they leave it on the staff, but how many people are going to say, don't come and observe me to your supervisor who has the power to hire or fire you? Yeah. How many teachers are going to be brave enough to say, please don't come now, I'm dealing with personal problems? They're going to think, no, the professional thing to do is to soldier on. I think the onus is on the leader to say, is everything okay for you to do this observation? And give that teacher the window of opportunity to say, well, you know what? I'm really going through a tough, can we have it next week or something like that? Will be helpful for well-being. What do you think?
Yeah, and observations are another kind of thing I could do another podcast with you on completely, because they can, so I think there's places where they're necessary, but I think there's kind of places even at the moment, like we've said, with the last 12 months with everything that's been going on and teachers have been going through more than usual, like an observation is the last thing really that should be done.
Yeah, I just wonder how many leaders, and hopefully the leaders listening to this podcast will take that on board when they're about to maybe do an evaluation or observation or something. Just take a minute and say to that teacher, is this the best time for us to do this? Is there anything that's going on that you'd like to talk about? And maybe maybe 90% of the time the teacher will say, no, everything is good, let's proceed.
Yeah.
But that off chance where that person might be able to open up to you to say, you know what, I just lost someone, or such and such is sick or something, and then be able to sort of push that off, and you'll be able to have that window to help on an emotional level. So let's get back to something positive. So it's summer, you are about to go back. What are you looking forward to for the summer, and what are you looking forward to on your return to your, in your new school?
Yeah, looking forward to like a break, to be honest, because the last 6 months, it's just been kind of like, right, I'm leaving this job, so I have to sort this job out, and like you're doing interviews and presentations to get the new job. And then there was a kind of uncertainty of, right, have I made a mistake? Start looking at other jobs, and then like the interview process and getting the new job and agreeing to it and all the things that come with that. So like it's a hectic enough process, changing jobs twice in a short space. And that's why I'd kind of say, if you are thinking about kind of leaving the classroom or whatever, like weigh up all the options, things like that. I'm happy to chat to anybody if they're thinking of the decision to go ahead. So just kind of taking a break from all of that. I'll go home and I'll take a break for a while, and then coming back in August. Looking forward to a lot of things, just like a new school, new environment, and everything that comes with that as well. Just kind of a fresh start. The school that I'd left, I'd been in for almost 6 years. So like I wouldn't say that you go stale or you plateau, but I kind of, I'd kind of went as far as I kind of thought I was going to go, and I kind of knew as much as I was going to know and learn there. So just kind of a whole new school and new people to know, and just looking forward to kind of like job satisfaction again. Like I touched upon kind of that I wanted to get things from every day in my job, and getting things from the students and getting value and things like that. And like you notice it when it's gone, you might not notice it at the time. Like when you're teaching and you come home and you might say, oh, that lesson went well. And you wouldn't notice just kind of the amount of satisfaction you get from it. But when you come home from a job of not kind of being satisfied or not doing things that you get any value from, you're kind of just like, I'm going in to clock in and then I'm leaving to clock out, and that's kind of the day. So returning to something that I'm getting satisfaction from and something that I'm kind of passionate and challenged by is the thing that I'm most looking for.
Awesome. That's a good note to end it on. And so if there are any takeaways from this podcast, it is that do your due diligence. If you want to leave the classroom, be sure that it's something that you really want to do. And the grass is definitely not always greener on the other side. And it probably will be for some, but for others, you might want to really consider changing your school before you change your entire profession, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, like I'd add that caveat, and like the couple of friends that I mentioned that have left at the same that I've left, like they've gone into still the education industry, but a new role that they're kind of happy and satisfied with. So like we said, just kind of reflect on kind of why you're leaving, look at your immediate school environment before you leave. And like it might be the right move for you. Like some people get into teaching and they're better suited elsewhere. So as you said, yeah, like it can be. For me, it's something I missed and that I'm looking forward to getting back into. But for others, it is the best option. So
thank you so much, David, for coming and for sharing with us on the Teach Middle East podcast. How can people get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you to talk about this or, anything? I'm
trying to kind of get going on Twitter a bit more. I was obviously very late to the game, but trying to kind of get some collaboration or networking with kind of other teachers. So it's just at David Keating Edu. And I'm happy enough to interact with anyone, or if anyone has any questions about getting out or returning to the classroom rapidly, they can let me know. Awesome. And we'll link to David's Twitter in the show notes of this podcast. So just click below and you will be able to click the link and directly connect with David. Thank you so much, David. Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Thank you for listening to the Teach Middle East podcast. Visit our website, teachmiddleeast.com, and follow us on social media. The links are in the show notes.